Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the exalted one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Satipattanang vo bhikkhave desissami Satipatthana bhavanancha Satipatthana bhavana gamini patipadancha. The most venerable Mahasangha, friends in the Dhamma. Now we are going to start another Dhamma discussion. The main topic is here that Vibhanga Sutta based on mindfulness. As Bhantes know, mindfulness is very important topic in Buddhism. When we see the Buddha's message, all the Buddhist doctrines that Buddha has explained for 45 years can be summarized into two pillars. One of them is practicing loving kindness meditation. The other one is practicing mindfulness. When we practice loving kindness, we can see 4 sublime states gradually increase. When we practice mindfulness, we can see concentration and wisdom gradually increase. This is the summary of Buddhism. Therefore, it is very important to understand the meaning of mindfulness that Buddha has explained. You know, in the present society, mindfulness is very famous topic. However, there are misunderstandings about mindfulness. Therefore, we should have clear understanding what mindfulness is in Buddhism. When we discuss this topic, we can see the importance of the meaning of mindfulness and the topic of mindfulness. One day, Reverend Ananda was very sad. The reason is that after Reverend Sariputta passed away, Reverend Ananda was so sad. And with sad mind, he came to the Buddha. He was crying near the Buddha. At that moment, Buddha asked, "Why do you, Ananda, cry? Why are you sad?" Then Reverend Ananda says, "Reverend Sir, my close friend Reverend Sariputta passed away. I can't see even the directions. My mind is so sad." Then Buddha asked very important question. Did Reverend Sariputta bring you a sila or virtue? Did Reverend Sariputta bring you a samadhi or concentration? Did Reverend Sariputta bring you a wisdom or understanding or liberation? No, Bhante. He didn't bring anything of mine. But he was very close to me. That is why I am so sad. Then Buddha says, according to Vibhanga Sutta, Ananda, I have said a lot of times that our close relatives and friends live one day. You have to make your mind. You should develop your mind, and also you should make a refuge within you. There Buddha says, Atta Depa Bhikkhave Viharata Atta Sarana Ananya Sarana. Dwell with yourself as an island, as a refuge, with no other refuge. There Buddha explains the way how we make a refuge within us. The real refuge that we can make within us, that practice in mindfulness. mindfulness is the best friend in our life. That is why Buddha says, Gochare bhikkhave charata sake pettike vise. Dwell in your father's field. Who is our father? Our spiritual father is the Supreme Buddha. Buddha invites us to live in the field of the Father, the Supreme Buddha's field. What is the Supreme Buddha's field? The Supreme Buddha's field is that mindfulness. Whenever we live in mindfulness, it likes that we are near the Buddha. Whenever we are away from mindfulness, it means we are away from our Father or spiritual teacher, the Buddha. Here it is very important to understand how we should live in mindfulness. And also Buddha says, if there are no monks, new monks, as elderly monks, they should teach and they should guide those monks with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the way how we trained other monks. Therefore, this topic is very, very important. The main reason is that whenever we practice mindfulness, other spiritual faculties gradually increase. Whenever we correctly practice mindfulness, other enlightenment factors such as Satara Samya Pradhana Virya, fourfold efforts, Satara Riddhipada, Indriya, Bala, Bojjanga, Attangika Magga, all the things gradually increase whenever we practice mindfulness. Usually when we say the meaning of mindfulness in the current society, a lot of people use this topic for stress management. Especially psychiatrists in the West, they use these techniques for their clients for stress management. There they say that forget your past, forget your future. Since past has ceased, future hasn't come yet, you have only the present moment, therefore live in the present moment. Actually, that advice is important for someone, but it is not the clear meaning of mindfulness in Buddhism. Buddhism never says us to forget our past or future. Forgetting is a mistake. But when we check some discourses such as Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha says there are some techniques that asati amanisikara, but it is not the forgetting. When some defilements come to our mind, we should not think it, but it doesn't say that we should forget it. And also, the main topic in Buddhism, that mindfulness, when we practice mindfulness, our memory gradually increases. Memory is not the fault. The fault is that ignorance. When we think something which happened in the past, if we think it with ignorance, that is the cause of suffering. If we can remember something which happened in the past with mindfulness, we have no problem. Negative thoughts don't come to our mind because of mindfulness. In this situation, we have to understand the clear meaning of mindfulness that the Buddha has explained. And also, when we learn mindfulness in Buddhism, we can refer several sources in Buddhism. The main discourse is that the great discourse of mindfulness in Digha Nikaya, Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And also there are some suttas about mindfulness in Majjhima Nikaya too. And also especially we can see many discourses in Samyutta Nikaya in Satipatthana Samyutta. When we read those discourses, we can learn very important topics and very important facts from several discourses. And also we can refer some books like in Kuddaka Nikaya, Patisamhita Magga, and also in Abhidhamma Pitaka, Vibhanga Pakarana, Satipatthana Vibhanga. Like that, we can learn and we can study several discourses and teachings in Buddhism about mindfulness. Here we specially selected one of the main discourses which comes in Samyutta Nikaya named Vibhanga Sutta. Sometimes you may ask me, why did you select this topic, this discourse, except Mahasatipatthana Sutta? There is a reason that I selected this discourse for this discussion. There are three special things that we can see in this discourse. The Supreme Buddha says here, Satipatthānaṁ o bhikkhave desissāmi, Satipatthāna bhavananca, Satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipadanca. Buddha has explained here three steps of mindfulness. One of them is Satipatthānam, mindfulness. The next one is Satipatthāna bhavanam, mindfulness meditation. And the third one is Satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipadam, the path that leads to mindfulness meditation. These three things should be understood by a person who wishes to practice mindfulness for the real benefits according to what the Buddha taught. And in short, if we discuss these three things, Satipatthāna means fourfold mindfulnesses. Satipatthāna bhavana means practicing insight meditation. Satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipada means practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. These three things should be together. But when we discuss the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, which comes in Digha Nikaya, these three things are not explained directly. However, if we can check very clearly, we can understand. But here it is very clear that these three topics, we can understand it. And when we check some discourses which come in Samyutta Nikaya, in Satipatthana Samyutta, many discourses, Buddha has explained very special sentence. Ādikēneva kusalesu dhammesu parisuddhehi. Before we start mindfulness, Buddha says, Ādikēneva kusalesu dhammesu parisuddhehi. At the beginning, we should purify the wholesomeness. At the very beginning of practicing mindfulness, we should cleanse the wholesome or the wholesomeness. Then Buddha explained how do we purify the wholesomeness. Then Buddha says, Sīlañca suvisuddhaṃ dittiñca ujukhaṃ. Sīlañca suvisuddhaṃ. Virtue should be purified, and dittiñca ujukhaṃ. Vision should be straight. That is very important. Vision and mission. When we study some discourses, Buddha explains the importance of having vision and mission. When we check Karanimettu Sutta, there also we can see Dittiñca anupagamma sīlavā dasanena sampanno. Without going to extremes, we should follow the virtue or moral conduct sila. Here also, Buddha explained that advice. Sīlañca suvisuddhaṃ, virtue or moral conduct should be purified It says in Satta Visuddhi, in Rathavinita Sutta, Sila Visuddhi. Sila Visuddhi and Ditti Visuddhi, there also we can see this order. And also, vision should be straight. What is the vision? Vision means we should have clear understanding the Buddhist vision or the Paticcasamuppada dependent origination, middle path. When we check some discourses such as Kacchanagotta, we can see this pattern. Buddha says, if someone sees the arising of five aggregates, he doesn't go to the extreme of annihilationism or Uchedavada. If someone sees the cessation of five aggregates, he doesn't go to the extreme of eternalism or eternalizationism, Sasadavada. These both extremes should be overcome with one vision, one advice, which is the dependent origination, Paticcasamuppada. Arising and ceasing of five aggregates. Our entire life is the five aggregates. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, whatever we do with our six senses, at the moment five aggregates arise and immediately they cease when conditions ceased. We should understand this pattern. This is the vision that we receive throughout understanding the Paticcasamuppada at the beginning of practicing mindfulness according to what the Buddha taught. Here, little by little, we can go forward. If you have any question so far, you can ask. And here, first of all, we are going to explain Satipatthana or mindfulness. Mindfulness means awareness or attention. Being aware of our body, feeling, consciousness, and mental objects or mental formations. Kayanupassana, Vedanupassana, Chittanupassana, Dhammanupassana. Contemplation of body, contemplation of feeling, contemplation of consciousness, and the contemplation of mental formations. These are the four areas that we are going to be mindful. Why do we need to practice these four areas? Practicing these four areas focus on understanding the five aggregates. Entire Buddhism in the deliverance path, we can see understanding the five aggregates and letting go from the attachment of five aggregates, clinging to five aggregates. Here, when we practice the contemplation of body, we can understand and realize the nature of body, of form, Rupa Skandha, the aggregates of form. Practicing Vedanupassana or contemplation of feeling, we are going to understand feeling or the aggregate of feeling, Vedana Khandha. By practicing Chittanupassana or the contemplation of consciousness, we are going to understand the aggregate of consciousness, Vijnana Khandha. By practicing Dhammanupassana or the contemplation of mind objects or Dhammanupassana, we understand the aggregate of Sanya or perception and Sankhara Khandha or the aggregate of mental formations. This is very clear. At the same time, by practicing these four areas, we understand the four food, Satara Ahara or Chattari Aharani. That is also one of the purposes of practicing fourfold mindfulnesses. And also the second part of mindfulness is that mindfulness meditation. When we see the current society, especially in the medical field, psychological field, they explain only the first step, living in the present moment. That is not the complete explanation about mindfulness in Buddhism. That is only a primary step. And also, when we practice mindfulness meditation, Buddha has explained the way how we practice it. Samudaya Dhammanupassī viharati, Vaya Dhammanupassī viharati. We reflect on arising and ceasing of 4 areas of 5 aggregates. In short, 4 areas: Kaya, body; Vedana, feelings; Vijnana, consciousness; and mental formations. We reflect on impermanence of these 4 areas. Every moment, our body arises and ceases. With the conditions, it arises. When conditions cease, it gradually ceases every moment. That is the thing that we reflect on as Satipatthana Bhavana. And also, we reflect on impermanence of feeling. Because of contact, feelings arise. When contact ceases, feelings also gradually cease. And also, we reflect on impermanence of consciousness. When conditions arise, consciousness arises. When conditions cease, consciousness also ceases. Nama Rupa Paccaya Vijnanam. The nearest cause of consciousness is that Nama Rupa, or mentality and materiality, or Nama and Rupa. And also again, Dhammanupassana is very complex area that there we have to practice many doctrines, not only wholesome but even unwholesome too. There we contemplate on negativities or unwholesomeness and wholesomeness too. By practicing mindfulness meditation, we trained our mind with insight meditation or vipassana bhavana, anicca sanya, arising and ceasing. Next, the Buddha explains Satipatthana Bhavana Gamini Patipada. It means understanding the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the path. That is very important. Before we practice mindfulness and mindfulness meditation, first of all, we should know the path. For example, when we go to a new place, first of all, we should know the address. Address is first. Without address, if we drive fast, our effort is useless. Therefore, first of all, we should know the address and we should put it in our navigator. Final destination is first. But when we drive, we start our journey from where we are in. Like that. When we say the Noble Eightfold Path, some people ask whether Sila or Panya is first. That is a very long time question among Buddhism. When we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the first. Actually, when we know the path, Samma Ditti Pure Javang, right understanding is first. When we go to a new place, the address is first. Samma Ditti Pure Javang. We should have clear understanding with Sutame Jnana, with the hearing knowledge, understanding the Four Noble Truth as a knowledge. When we practice the path, Sile Patittaya Narosapanyo. Sila is first. Sila is the foundation. But Sila and Panya are interrelated. Both of them are interrelated. However, when we go forward on this path, first of all, we should know the Noble Eightfold Path. Their Sammaditthi, or right understanding, is very important. Right understanding means Dukkha Jnanam, Samudaya Jnanam, Nirodha Jnanam, Magga Jnanam. Understanding the Four Noble Truths. First of all, we should understand the noble truth of suffering. It is very famous. We usually have heard that Jatipi Dukkha, Jarapi Dukkha, like that. Finally, we listening to that Sankirtena Panchupadana Khanda Dukkha. In short, arising of five aggregates. So, clinging to five aggregates is suffering. This is the common meaning according to Sutta Pitaka. But when we go to some references, especially when we refer the Abhidhamma Pitaka, Satya Yamaka, there is a very special explanation about the noble truth of suffering. There it says like that, Kāyikan dukkhaṃ cetasika dukkhaṃ tapetva avasesaṃ dukkha saccyaṃ na dukkhaṃ. The rest, except physical suffering and mental suffering, that is the noble truth of suffering, that is not suffering. Again it says, Kāyikan dukkhaṃ cetasika dukkhaṃ dukkhaṃ ca dukkha saccyaṃ ca. If we have some physical suffering or mental suffering, that is the suffering and the noble truth of suffering. This is a very special explanation about the dukkha satya. On the other side, we can see when we refer Pati Sambhida Magga, there are in Charya Nanatta Jnana, there are three behaviors. One of them is Vijnana Charya, or conscious behavior, and Ajnana Charya, unwise behavior, and third, Jnana Charya, wise behavior. When we refer these three things, we can say Vijnana Charya means there it says our mind is pure. It says Pakati Parisuddhamidam Chittam. Mind is very pure. In the state of Vijnana Charya, our first experience, it says there are Niraga, Niddosa, Nimoha, Nimana, like that. Finally it says mind is pure. In Vijnana Charya it says the dukkha satya, the noble truth of suffering. When we contact something through our senses, the very first experience is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is neutral. That is why it says it is not suffering. It is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Very first experience just a vipaka or result of our previous actions. But it is very instant. It arises and ceases. We have only primary level understanding at the first experience. It arises and immediately it ceases given the very first experience, but it not the complete understanding. The very first experience is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. It is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It is just a result. It is pure. But we can't stand in this first experience. When we recognize something, the very first experience has ceased. We experience in two ways. One thing is Ajnana Charya or unwise behavior, or wise behavior, jnanacharya. Ajnanacharya means if we don't know the process of this understanding, immediately our mind is fixed in outside material world. Then samudaya satya, or the noble truth of the origin of suffering, arises. According to Madhupindika Sutta, Chakkuncha paticca rupecha uppajyati chakku vijnana, like that. When I form eye consciousness, then eye contact. It ends with prapancha, or craving, self-view and conceit, mana. That is the nature of ignorance. When we understand something with ignorance, we can't stop in the middle. We end this mind or consciousness with jara, marana, decay and death. We are associated with suffering. When we see something with ignorance, if our mind is fixed in outside world, we are in the sansaric circle. It means avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnana paccaya nam rupam, like that. We end it with jara, marana, decay and death. This is the sansaric circle, the patisampada, dependent origination. When we look at something with ignorance, unmindfully, we are with suffering. If we can understand this reality and if we are able to live in mindfulness, as soon as we see something, if we can understand, I understand this form or sound with my mind consciousness, and also when I understand this form or sound through my mind consciousness, the very first experience has ceased. When you look at me, your eye, form, eye consciousness and eye contact have ceased. When you recognize something through your mind consciousness, it doesn't mean that there is no forms outside. Actually, there are material world outside. We can contact it. But the important thing is, when we contact something depending on our senses. Our experience depends on our senses. Our senses depends on our present mental condition. But scientists or other people, they think that our understanding depends on outside world. Actually, we create the world at the moment. There are 4 fundamental elements outside. It depends on our senses. Those senses arise at the moment. Every moment we create senses. When we refer the information about 6 senses in Buddhism, all the senses like eye, ear, nose, like that, these 6 senses we can see. They are sappatiga anidassana. We can contact with these senses, but we can see these senses through our eye. That is very important. We can see our senses. Those are anidassana, invisible. But we can do the process. We can use it. However, the nature of these senses are that ahutva sambutam hutva nabhavisati. Every moment they arise and cease. Not being occurred comes to occurrence. Being occurred will not go to occurrence. This is the nature of our all experiences. Our internal senses, external objects, consciousnesses, all the things are like that. And here, if we have this understanding, it means we have right understanding, correct vision, Sammaditthi, then we follow the Noble Eightfold Path. Among the 8 steps, mindfulness is one of them. We can't get it away from the Noble Eightfold Path. If we practice mindfulness as one thing, actually it means it doesn't belong to the Noble Eightfold Path. Mindfulness we practice according to Buddhism should be a part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It begins with Sammaditthi or right understanding, right intention, then sila, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness. As the result of practicing right mindfulness, we are able to concentrate our mind in a particular wholesome object. Those are the things that Buddha has explained in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. How do we practice fourfold mindfulnesses? Why do we need to practice this path? Buddha explains the results of practicing mindfulness. Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo satthana visuddhya. Practicing mindfulness is the only way for the purification of beings. Soka paridhavana samatikkamaya. This is only path for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. Dukkha domanassanang attangamaya. This is only path for the destruction of pain and grief. Nyaya sadhigamaya. This is the only path for the gaining knowledge of wisdom. Nibbana satchikiriyaya. For the attaining enlightenment. This is only path. Buddha has explained the results at the beginning of the discourse in Mahasatipatthana Sutta. If we want to overcome suffering, if we want to purify our mind, this is only path. Whenever we are mindful, if we can understand that when we remember something, when we see something, when we hear something, if we are mindful that the form has ceased, I recognize this experience through my mind consciousness, and also this mind consciousness also impermanent. It is not permanent. It also arises at the moment with the conditions. When conditions cease, that mind consciousness also ceases. If we have this full understanding with mindfulness at this moment, we don't depend on outside, even we don't depend on inside our mind. We is the only thing that arising and ceasing of 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates means Rupa form, Vedana feeling, Sanya perception, Sankhara mental formations, and Vijnana consciousness. These 5 things are unable to divide. They cannot be divided. But we study and reflect on these 5 things separately by our wisdom, according to the Buddha's message. But we should understand these 5 things cannot be divided. These 5 things arise together, they cease together. Buddha says he advises only one thing for worldliness, for their liberation. Not only worldliness or prutajjana, for all the stages of spiritual levels, Buddha advised only one thing. What is that? Reflecting on impermanence of 5 aggregates. Arising, ceasing, gratification, danger, and liberation of 5 aggregates. This is only one thing that we have to reflect on for our liberation or emancipation. When we practice mindfulness meditation, actually we practice this advice. Here, the very first step is that Kayanupassana. Kayanupassana is explained in several stages. The very first one is Anapanasati, practicing breathing meditation. Keeping our attention in the present moment with this understanding, now we are going to understand our body or form by practicing Kayanupassana or the contemplation of body. Anapanasati meditation, it is very familiar with you. Keeping our attention around the nose or upper lip. When we breathe in, we are aware of that now I am breathing in. When I breathe out, we should think that now I am breathing out. Again and again, we trained our mind in the present moment with breathing in and out. When our mind gains concentration, we reflect on impermanence. The very first step, that keeping our attention in the present moment, being mindful in breathing in and out, belongs to Satipatthana. When mind gains concentration, we reflect on Satipatthana Bhavana, mindfulness meditation, reflecting on impermanence. Our breathing is one of the parts of our body. This breathing occurs because of our body. This physical body arises because of food that we have taken. This body is a result of food that we have taken. Ahara samudayo, rupa samudaya. Because of nutrition or food that we take, this body arises. As the result of cessation of food or nutrition, this body also ceases. This is the understanding that we receive throughout practicing Kayanupassana, especially Anapanasati. But Anapanasati Bhavana, breathing meditation, is used in various ways for many purposes. But we, Buddha's disciples, practice breathing meditation not only for concentration but for understanding the reality as it is. As the result of concentration of practicing breathing meditation, when mind gains concentration, we reflect on impermanence, arising and ceasing of our physical body. Then we understand this body is not a particular person. This is a result of some reasons. This is a process of some reasons. It is impermanent. It is dissatisfactory. And it is selfless. Then little by little we can develop Kayanupassana. The second level is that Iriyapata. When we use our four postures, standing, walking, sitting, lying down, when we behave these four areas, four behaviors, four postures, we are aware of our body posture. When we walk, we think that now I am walking. When we stand, we think that now I am standing. When we sit, we know that now I am sitting. When we lie down, we understand that now I am lying down. We are aware of our body posture. When we gain concentration with the mindfulness of our body postures, we reflect on impermanence. Again, we understand this body is the result of food that we have taken. When food ceases, this body also ceases. Then we don't take any particular person as permanent, as my, as me, as mine. We see the process of this physical body. And also, Sampajanya Pabba, next step, that we are aware of how all the activities that we do from morning to night. When we eat, when we drink, when we wear some clothes, whatever we do everything with awareness. Here we understand there are some actions in our life, but there is no particular person who does these activities. This is a process of some reasons, and especially the connection of our mind and body. This is also one of the understandings that we receive throughout practicing Kayanupassana. And also the next step is that we contemplate on four fundamental elements. This physical body consists with four fundamental elements: earth element, water element, fire element, and air elements. This body is not a particular person. This body consists with these four things. And also, when we think this reality again and again, we understand this body has arisen because of food and also these four areas. Then gradually we can understand the nature of our physical body. The next level, we contemplate on our body parts in our body. Kesa, loma, nakha, danta, like hair, nails, skin, hair, like that. We contemplate on the body parts, and also we see the connection of body and food, and also the nature of our physical body. Finally, we practice Navasivatika or 9 channel, that when after we die, our body will be kept in a cemetery, then gradually this body is going to dust. We reflect on this reality before we become that level. These are the areas that we contemplate on as Kayanupassana, or the contemplation of body, as the first level of Satipatthana, according to Buddhist explanation. As the result of practicing this first stage of mindfulness, we are able to realize the nature of our physical body. Then not only our body, we compare this reality to others' body too. When we see someone, we think that others' bodies are also like that. Then little by little, we can overcome attachment. Not only we can overcome attachment and detachment, we are able to overcome ignorance. As soon as we see someone, if we can understand, when I recognize that person, the very first experience has ceased, then automatically we become equanimity, upekha. We have nothing to attach or even detach. The reason is that understanding. Then we go to the next level, Vedanupassana. Being aware of our body, we understand our physical body. In the next step, that practicing the contemplation of feeling. According to our 6 senses, every moment feelings arise. Through one sense, only one feeling arises at the moment. That feeling arises and ceases at the moment. We usually say that I have a headache since morning, but that feeling didn't come to continuously. Every moment that feeling arises and ceases. It may be eye feeling, ear feeling, like that. We understand this feeling arises because of contact. When contact ceases, the feeling also ceases every moment. The Vedana or feeling may be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. No matter whatever feeling we receive, the nature of feeling is that it arises and ceases at the moment. When we understand the nature of feeling, we become neutral about the feeling. We understand the nature of feeling. This feeling doesn't belong to any particular person. This feeling is a process of some reasons. then we become equanimity, reflecting on impermanence. The next thing is that contemplating on consciousness. Every moment, consciousness arises and ceases. Consciousness mainly is divided into 6. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, like that there are 6 consciousness. Once arises only one consciousness, then it ceases, then next consciousness arises. However, there is a very special thing here. We have some experience as consciousness in the primary level with our 5 senses, but that is only the primary level experience. Buddhism says that na panchahi viññānehi kinchi dhamma paṭivijanāti. We have no complete understanding through 5 senses. Anyatra abhinipātamatta, only contact. We have only primary level understanding about the 5 objects outside. When we get the complete understanding through our mind consciousness, the important thing is when we recognize something through our mind consciousness related to 5 consciousnesses, the 5 senses and 5 external objects have already ceased. If you have this understanding, we can release from outside material worlds, and also when we reflect on impermanence of our consciousness, mind consciousness, by practicing Chitta Anupassana, we can release from mind consciousness too. We see the world as an empty village. There is outside material world, but when we comprehend it, the outside world has ceased. Sunyo gamo avekasu. We see the world as an empty village. Not only we see outside, but we reflect on our consciousness too, mind consciousness too. That is also impermanent. That also arises and ceases at the moment. As the result of practicing the contemplation of consciousness, we can realize the nature of consciousness or chitta or viññāna. The next stage of contemplation in mindfulness is that Dhammanupassana. By practicing Dhammanupassana or the contemplation of mind objects, we are going to understand perceptions and mental formations, sanya and samkhara. First, we understand when we have hindrances, especially 5 hindrances: kamachanda, sensual pleasure; vyapada, ill will; tīna middha, sloth and torpor; uddhacca kukkujja, restlessness and worry; and vicikicca, skeptical doubt. When we have these negativities, unwholesome mental states, hindrances in our mind, we immediately understand, now I have these kind of hindrances. When we are aware of these hindrances, they gradually reduces, they gradually ceases. When our mind has no these hindrances, if we are aware of that situation, those negativities don't come to our mind. We can be free from these hindrances. Then we can see the beauty of our mind. Buddha says very clearly, if a person can reduce these negativities, especially hindrances, is the person who receives happiness in this world like a Brahma. His happiness, his satisfaction is over than human world and heavenly realm. His happiness is like in the Brahma realm, because he has no hindrances at the moment. Not only that, he goes forward, he contemplates on 5 aggregates. Now he is aware of his mind and mental objects. He is fully aware of his mind and consciousness, mind and mental formations. Then he understands whatever he experiences through his senses. He understands very clearly. 5 aggregates arise and cease. Besides 5 aggregates, we have no any other thing in our life. Our entire life is that 5 aggregates. But we should decide that whether we live in Ajnanacharya or Jnanacharya, whether in wise consciousness or unwise consciousness. If we are mindful and wise, we always reflect on 5 aggregates as impermanent, arising and ceasing. Then we are away from suffering. Whenever we depend on 5 aggregates unconsciously, unwisely, without mindfulness, we are in the samsaric circle. We are collecting sankhara or punyavi sankhara, meritorious formations, or apunyavi sankhara, demeritorious mental formations, or ananjavi sankhara, infertable mental formations, because of ignorance. Avidya paccaya sankhara, punyavi sankhara, apunyavi sankhara, ananjavi sankhara. Whenever we reflect on impermanence at the moment, we are developing the very helpful mental formations such as sanya, anicca sanya, anatta sanya, asubha sanya, like that. Those are the perceptions that helps us to overcome karmic energy or samsaric circle. That mental formations help us to overcome the world. That says in Buddhism, Atti bhikkhave kammang, akanna sukhang, akanna sukha vipakang, kammakaha sammatati. There are some actions which are neither black nor white, which help us to overcome the karma or the mental formations which cause to continue the samsaric circle. Here it is very important to understand, very important thing. In the Ajnanacharya or unwise behavior, we collect some punyavi sankhara, white karma, white actions. Buddhism doesn't neglect practicing these karmas. The reason is that Buddha had great wisdom and also he had great compassion too. Buddha sees the difference in the world. Even though some people ask this message, some people are unable to practice this message maximally. Therefore, Buddha has shown the heavenly path too. That is why Buddha encouraged us to practice merits too. Buddha says, Ma punyasa bhai. Don't afraid of doing merits. Mava manyeta punyasa. Don't neglect merits. And Buddha says, merit synonyms as happiness. When we see some discourses, Buddha has shown the heavenly path for people. In that situation, we should understand, in one side, Buddha has explained some teachings for a blissful life, and also Buddha has explained some teachings for deliverance path too. But Buddhism has given the priority to deliverance path because that is very rare. We have received a very blissful, rare, valuable chance. Therefore, we should not miss this valuable chance. If we are wise, we should learn the deliverance path. And also, when Buddha met some gifted persons such as Bhahyadarucharya, Sariputta, Panchavagya Bhikkhu, Pukkusati, the Buddha directly explained the deliverance path. The reason is that Buddha had to read others' mind, and Buddha could realize others' spiritual faculties that they have practiced. That quality was only for the Buddha. Even Sariputta didn't have this special psychic energy, spiritual energy. Only Buddha had this spiritual energy, we say it, Indriya Paro Pariyatha Jnana. With that understanding, Buddha understood the audience nature. However, in the Dhammanupassana, we contemplate on our mental formations when we go forward. We understand, we contemplate on senses, especially our internal senses such as eye, ear, nose, like that, and also external objects. They all are impermanent. It means they arise at the moment, they immediately cease. That is also we contemplate on when we practice Dhammanupassana. And also 7 enlightenment factors, Sattabojjhanga. Now we have come forward. Now we have fully mindfulness. Then we have trained our mind. We are fully aware of our spiritual faculties. Enlightenment factors, Sati Sambojjhanga, Dhammavijaya Sambojjhanga, like that. There are 7 enlightenment factors. When we have these enlightenment factors, we understand now I have these spiritual enlightenment factors, and when we don't have those enlightenment factors, we understand that also. Then little by little we complete these spiritual faculties. Finally, we realize the Four Noble Truths, what we heard at the beginning of this path. First, we had the Suttamaya Jnana, the knowledge of hearing. When mind gradually gains concentration and developed, we reflect on the Four Noble Truths, what the Noble Truth of suffering is. Dukkha Satya, Samudaya Satya, Nirodha Satya, Magga Satya. Dukkha Satya, the Noble Truth of suffering should be understood. The very first experience, the 5 aggregates should be understood. Dukkha Satyam Parinyayam. Samudaya Satyam, we should overcome the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the attachment or the clinging to 5 aggregates. And also we realize the achievement of liberation, Nirodha Satya, or the cessation of suffering. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering, Nirodha Satyam Satyakatabba. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering should be achieved or realized. And Magga Satyam Bhavetabban. The noble truth of the path that leads to getting rid of suffering should be practiced or developed. In short, the path is that samatha and vipassana, or concentration and wisdom. Even though there are 8 steps about the path, finally, when we check the path, we have to practice finally concentration and wisdom. keeping our attention in a particular wholesome object and also reflecting on impermanence. That is the thing we can see Kinsokoma Sutta. As a wise person who attain enlightenment, how he behaves. He fully behaves with concentration and wisdom. As the result of practicing these 4 areas, finally we have to practice only one thing, that arising and ceasing of 5 aggregates. This is the way how we practice mindfulness. Mindfulness, being aware of those 4 areas, mindful meditation, practicing insight meditation or reflecting on impermanence, the path that leads to mindfulness meditation, understanding the Noble Eightfold Path and practicing it. As the result of this understanding, we give the priority to practice Noble Eightfold Path. We don't go away from the Noble Eightfold Path. Ujuko nama somaggo abheha nama sadisa. This is the direct path. This is the fearless path. If we are in the Noble Eightfold Path, we have the protection. Nobody can disturb our peace of mind. We give the priority to our spiritual life for our inner peace, emancipation, liberation. For that, I wish you all the best. I really appreciate your attention, and by the power of this spiritual energy, may you attain Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dukkam pantāca niddukkhaṃ, bhayam pantāca nibbhayāṃ, sokam pantāca nissokāṃ, hontu sabbe pipānino. Dukin pelena sat, dukin midetva, bien pelena sat, bien eti vetva, sovinte vena sat, somnas vetva, nitin me hema sat, suepat vetva.